Hi guys.
Hi, everyone.
So we wanted to get on today because there's a lot of there's oh you're playing the video. There's a lot of sort of apathy out there right now and loss of hope and sort of just this feeling that we're doomed, everything's over and done, and there's no coming back from this. And I'm here to tell you that's wrong. That's absolutely wrong, and I'm going to explain why. Not all is lost. I'm also not going to sugarcoat it. We are in a bad spot. We are in a very bad spot, and it's going to be an uncomfortable period of time here. But there's issues that I feel the need to explain because I've seen a lot of confusion and things that just aren't people aren't seeing clearly yet. So I want to lay some things out. Okay. First of all is priorities. Okay. Actually, before we get to priorities, I want to talk about apathy because what I see from a lot of people, this idea, I'm never going to vote again. Everything's rigged. The system is just a uniparty, and we're never going to break through, and all that. That's exactly what they want. That's what all the information war that you've seen over the past 5 years has been designed to make you apathetic. It's been designed to make you lose trust in the system. It's been designed to make you feel like your voice will never be heard. And the reason it's designed that way is because we're so close to tearing down what sits right in front of us, controlling people. And so, it may not feel like that right now, but that is the reason why it's been designed that way. So apathy is what we have to push away right now. And instead we have to put on sort of like our game face, and we've got to regroup, recalibrate, recharge, and then get right back to being the strongest opposition they've ever seen. Okay, so here's the plan. In terms of what's coming, we have an election fraud problem. Okay, so I'm not pretending there's no election fraud problem. There is, and I understand the people that are upset about and who are upset about that and who think there's just no point in voting again. So let me explain a few things. Number one, there is not a fraud problem in every state, not a sizable one, not an election shaking one. There is in the swing states. So you talk about Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona. They have severe fraud problems in those states. And a lot of it's predicated on corruption, on the whole COVID pressure to have mail ballots, people could vote, and all of that. That was all built to allow what has occurred to occur. So how are we going to fix that? That's the question. And the reality is some good things that came out of the 2020 election is that Republicans took even more control of state legislatures. So that means going into session, which is happening now, a bunch of those state legislatures are going into session. The priority needs to be, how do we fix all these laws? And they alone have the ability to do that. And we have Republican majorities. So the fact that we have those means that we do have the ability to change election law right now. So the priority for our movement in terms of manpower should be reaching out to these legislators and saying, look, we need to fix this. If we don't fix this, people are not going to vote. And that is going to be a problem for us. And we need to make sure that we are making people trust our system and that voting is not something that is useless. And we need to have those legislators, get on the ball here. And I've talked to a ton of legislators recently, and they are all on the same page of getting this done. And so that's a piece of how we move forward, because, fixing that, I understand, without being able to trust elections, we have a serious problem. And so that is step one. But also the people in red states like us in Tennessee, we don't have a huge voter fraud problem in Tennessee. So for us, what our legislature is going to be looking at is, how do we tighten things up? And that's what I would encourage a lot of these states that are red to do, that don't have big problems, because we saw red waves in a lot of states like Tennessee. We need to, just tighten things up, make sure that we're ensuring there's no holes in the system. And that's a smart thing to do. But after that, the next move in terms of politics is making sure that we are very active identifying people to run in primaries, recruiting them who have MAGA ideologies and who are putting America first, primarying rhinos. This is going to be a huge part of it, I guarantee you, from President Trump. He is going to be out there and he is going to be active going out and campaigning for people who will primary these establishment rhinos, the people who stabbed him in the back. He will do that, and it will bring a wave of candidates who have the same ideology as Trump. See, it was easier to stop Trump for them in some ways because Trump was so alone. You know, he had some allies in Congress, a couple in the Senate, but very, very few relative to a normal president. And so how do we fix that? And the way we fix that is by making sure that the candidates we put forward in 2022 are ones that share our ideology. And that's something that we fully have the ability to do, especially with him if he goes barnstorming across the country, doing these huge, massive rallies for primary candidates, we can change that. That's a big part of it. But then there's a cultural aspect. So on the cultural side of things, we've talked about this a lot. Where we spend our money matters. And in the past on the right, we haven't been very organized about that. And that's something we're going to do, is get organized about how we spend our money and with what corporations, right?
Right. I think we're going to see the biggest counterculture movement that we've ever seen in America. And what I mean by that is there are millions of us, millions of MAGA, millions of conservatives, millions of people just simply wanting freedom, simply wanting to build American values and preserve them. And that means preserving small businesses and the individual and an individual's rights. So somebody asked, how do we get to this point? How has the left gotten so much headway, so much ground? And it was because we were apathetic. We were comfortable. We gave in. We signed away these social contracts and didn't pay attention. And that goes across the gamut, from education to entertainment to social media to our diet of news and information.
And COVID.
So that is going to require some time where we really as individuals go over and take inventory over everything that we have been doing. Because if we don't do that on an individual level, nothing will change. Now, I want to ask you how much money you think you spend supporting woke brands, supporting leftist radical ideology, supporting leftist teachers that want to indoctrinate your children and change definitions of words, our language, our history. How much time, how much energy, how much money have you spent as an individual? I know I've done that inventory, and I was shocked. I was unconscious of so much of my spending habits, so much of the time I spent investing in platforms that ultimately are designed to destroy us and to waste our time and energy. So, this is a really uncomfortable process to we have anger, we have frustration, and we want to put the blame somewhere. And there is, reason, to put blame on certain individuals that had the power, that we voted in, that didn't represent us, right? And we need to hold those people accountable. But we also need to realize our own power, in not just with our vote, with everything. Imagine how successful the left would have been had we not supported their schools, had we not supported their radical education, sexualization of children agendas, their Hollywood movement, everything. Have we not idolized their people? How much further would they have gone? How fast would they have gotten there? If we take millions, and I would argue even billions, out of their economies, ideological economies essentially, because they're woke brands, and we invested in our small businesses and businesses that support patriots, support freedom, support the right to be open against government tyranny, individual liberty and freedom, and we uplift individuals, we could see a economic revolution, a cultural revolution like we've never seen. So we have so much power. Biden becoming the president cannot stop that.
And he will
as long
be an
as we have our yes, and as having those freedoms, as long as we have them, and we still fight for them, and we have to own them and take that back. We don't ask our government for permission to maintain our individual rights, and we have to have a plan, like on a family level and on a movement level. But what is your plan when they try to come after guns? What is your plan when they try to forcibly vaccinate your family or tell you can't gather when there's another virus, whatever it is? What is the plan? Because I would argue we didn't have a plan. We were in constant state of reaction to what they're doing, constantly being outraged, addicted to the cycle of emotional outrage. Can you believe they did this? Oh my gosh, I can't believe they did this. Now they're doing this. What were we doing during that time? we have to look at that and have a plan going forward. We know what we're dealing with. We will never underestimate them again. There is crazy stuff coming down the pipeline we haven't even fathomed. It's coming. So what are we doing?
So, I would say this to kind of jump to a different topic. A lot of people have asked about a third party and saying, well, I just don't trust the GOP. I don't trust the establishment. Screw them. They backstabbed us and all that. There's a reality here that is really difficult, but that we have to address. And it's that there is a very, very, very strong infrastructure within the party already, in the Republican Party. And I mean that throughout the country. There's an actual infrastructure, offices, GOP offices, people who donate their time and all those things. To build a similar infrastructure to what the Democratic Party have and the Republican Party have takes a lot of time, a lot of money. It's not going to happen in 4 years. And unfortunately, if you look at a country and you just say, hey, this country has one left-wing party and two right-wing parties, what does that always mean? It always means the left-wing party wins, because you're splitting votes here on the other side. It doesn't matter if you're only splitting 5%, 6%, it doesn't matter. And the reality is, even the MAGA movement, yes, we attract some center-left Democrats. We attract some, sort of classical liberals that believe in free speech and are outraged by the far left taking over their party, but not enough of them for us to be able to have two right-wing parties that are splitting off votes from each other. So it's just not a realistic outcome if you want to win. And I want to win, and I want to save America from socialism. And I don't say that dramatically. I say that as somebody who's had a family already lose everything to socialism. So, I'm looking at this very pragmatically, and the pragmatic approach is we take over the party by winning and having 2022 be the rebirth of MAGA. And that's going to be alongside the president. President Trump is going to go out there and he's going to push for these candidates who are ideologically within the same framework of what he's done over the last 4 years. You take away all the crazy media stuff and you just look at policy. The policy's been incredible. It's driven America to heights that we had never seen before up until COVID. And you look at, COVID is a good example of how a lot of the establishment, on the right, just kind of, they buckled and bent their knee down to the left and, did everything that happened. I mean, just look at Fauci. Fauci didn't have to be the head and the face of COVID. Okay. He didn't have to be put in that position. He was put there. And that was a strategic mistake. Imagine if Scott Atlas from Stanford had been there instead as the face from the very beginning. We'd be looking at a very different outcome right now. We would have had, less lockdowns and, really a much firmer base of how we dealt with COVID. Elevating people like that to satiate the left has never done anything positive for us. So things like that are mistakes that we need to learn from and not commit again. But in terms of ideology, when we look at these primaries and we're looking for candidates to run, we need to be looking for smart people who are ideologically driven, who also understand how the government works and understand how to use levers of power within government, because that's another mistake over the last 4 years. We did not use every lever of government that we could use to actually change some of the institutional problems that have kept out people who feel forgotten, and a big problem we have is people show up in DC, they run a good campaign, they show up in DC and they want to be loved and they want to make friends. And so they start doing deals with each other. They start, sort of scratching each other's backs. The answer to that is more ideological candidates, people who are really firmly implanted in their ideas and who don't have that desire to be loved, which means looking for reluctant politicians, people who could be doing something else where they make more money. That's a good barometer of could somebody be making more money if they were not a congressman? That's a good thing to look at, because a lot of times that means that they're kind of reluctantly doing it because they care about the country, they care about our freedom. So those things matter. So in terms of a third party, I have to say it's not an idea that's based in a pragmatic solution to actually stop what's coming.
Yeah, election reform is the answer. Championing that these coming 2 years, which we believe is the
really
critical
the next 12
time.
Months is critical for election reforms.
With how much can get done within 2 years, if we don't fight back, if we don't start holding even individuals on the micro level in our communities accountable, They will play into the system, play right into the hands of fear, of propaganda, of the media. Essentially it's going to be a state-run media.
Yeah.
And we have to hold people accountable. This is what I'm saying is this time period is calling for each of us to be very loud, very active, very vocal. Now, where are we going to get that time from? It's going to require no longer watching Netflix and supporting the Obama's company, which sexualizes children. They put out cuties. It's distraction. They want us to be distracted and apathetic and do nothing and believe, oh, this party's dead. Let's go waste time trying to invent this or that or reinvent the wheel. They want us out of the game so they can get us out of the way. We want to be in the way. We want to put up roadblocks. We want to be loud. We want to stop them from every initiative. And we will start calling it out before they even get the paperwork dry.
Yeah.
Did you know that in Congress they had something drafted before it even happened? Sean.
Yeah. So I know why they did that. I could explain that if maybe later on the stream. But basically, the idea was they already wanted to do this just because the Republicans like Holly were objecting. They wrote that up for that reason. But then once the event happened at the Capitol, then they decided, oh, we'll latch it onto that. We'll say we're doing this because of that. But in reality, they had already planned to do it. You look at this path forward and you need to remember we're in an information war, and that's another aspect that we have to be very, we have to be discerning. We have to have discernment at the front of our mind and be very careful with who we're giving our wholesale trust.
Right.
Because there's a lot of charlatans out there who will tell you the next big thing is coming. There's going to be this huge thing that's going to change everything I'm not sure when, but it's coming. It's coming and it's coming soon. You just wait. It's going to change it all. That's not a healthy mindset.
Wait and do nothing. Wait and do nothing. Wait and do nothing. And then what happens with the left?
That's another way that frankly, bad people produce apathy in groups that they're afraid of. They're afraid of our movement. But if they can produce apathy within it, then there's nothing to fear because people are just sitting down waiting, or they're sitting down upset and sad
distracted
and hopeless. That's what they want. And so we can't give them that. And we have to be very careful who we listen to and believe and who we trumpet, because there's some people out there who are just frankly, their job is to make fools of our movement. And I've seen too many people fall for it. And that's not a value judgment on those people, because they're really good people. And it's why I've spoken up about it, because I hate seeing good people duped just because there's this hunger to fix everything that's broken. And I understand the hunger because I have the same hunger. I want to see everything that's broken fixed. But I know how the system works. And the only way to break it is from inside of it. It's not from people, who claim to have, this anonymous source of an anonymous source of an anonymous source, and they're going to provide this big bombshell. That's just not the reality of how this is going to change. This is going to change by doing what the left did very successfully. You make small incremental changes. You attack the system from the inside. They had Mark Elias, a lawyer for the Democrats, in courtrooms for years since Trump won, getting things changed in their favor. We were apathetic because we had power and we thought there's no way they're going to pull this off. And unfortunately they pulled it off because we didn't have the appropriate sort of fight back or setup against this. And there were lots of us who warned about fraud coming when the mail ballots changed. And that's a huge thing we have to change. We can't have the mail ballot farce. That's not how voting works in America. We also can't have voting week. It's called voting day. It's election day for a reason. And we can't have counting week either. We don't, that's something we have to encourage from our legislature. Set a time limit on counting, because we can't have a week of counting votes in America. That's ridiculous. We can count our votes in one day, period. And that should not be a problem at all. That shouldn't be a problem at all with the technology we have. It's ridiculous to claim otherwise. So, but to the trust factor, trust is so incredibly important. We have to be able to trust our leaders. We have to be able to trust the people who are fighting alongside us. So we have to also, if we hold trust in that high of a regard, that means that we have to have a high regard for how you earn trust. And that means people do need to prove that they're trustworthy. And so that's something I would encourage people to sort of look in the mirror at the things, and I had to do this with myself, look in the mirror at Have I, ever believed people too easily, and how do you sort of put up guardrails against that to make sure that you're not allowing people to distort or divide good people. And so I think that's really important is ensuring that we're not just latching on to the thing that feels good, but instead be committed to doing the hard work, because that's what it's going to take to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Saving a country is not an easy thing. It's not something that's going to magically happen by sitting at home waiting for somebody to release something.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to happen by doing hard work, by volunteering, by putting our blood, sweat, tears, and money into it, and by being more committed than anybody else. We have to be more committed than the establishment. We have to be more committed than the Democratic Party.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be more committed than the socialists like AOC. Okay? Because if we're not, then we are going to lose this country. And I'm not going to tell you otherwise. We are in a tough spot, but it is not unwinnable and it is not hopeless. There is hope and it is winnable, but it is going to take all of us shifting our mindset to we're ready to work. We're ready to attack this. I took a day of being, upset about everything yesterday, and I'm right back to work. I'm right back to hope, how to fix this, to doing what needs to be done, to calling legislators, to working on election reform, to doing everything in my power to ensure that in this 2-year window we stop socialism from destroying this country that we love.
Mm-hmm. A lot of these ideologies, these radical agendas are supported by financial movements, right? So we've seen that, BLM, although they made billions, and although they never donated or helped uplift any single member of the Black community, and that money got funneled and channeled into Act Blue and, uplifting the Democratic Party, we have to look at other movements like that, other agendas. I mean, even Girl Scouts of America, literally, we have to look at everything and find out how we're participating. It's not so easy. It really isn't. I bought this pan off of Instagram a while ago. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. And I thought I was supporting a small business, an individual. And that same person basically said, Republicans should be in camps and that we are all racist and this. And I'm going, I just funded that person's platform. I just paid them.
To be clear, she bought it before they said that.
Obviously.
But you never know. Some people might
why would
say you said it.
I think that there's enough context here. Yeah. I think people are smart enough to know that. But little things like that, the individuals that we are uplifting, the schools, everything, we would be so surprised for people who have not done this inventory to look and see what we've been funding, because that is the biggest thing right there. Pull the rug out from underneath people that you've been supporting, because they will take a second look when they realize that there's thousands, millions disappearing. And imagine what our world would look like if every single patriot said, I'm not supporting China anymore. Yeah. American made, American owned, patriot run.
Yep. Well, I mean, even just beyond that, they're creating a system that casts us out, and so we have to be ahead of the curve there and realize that the answer to that is not to be left cast out of a system. The answer to that is create your own system, because we don't want to be a part of a system they control. We want to be firmly in control of our own systems and our own institutions. And that goes to, basic economy, that goes to every other aspect, entertainment, art, culture, everything. We have to have all those institutions within our movement because we're being pushed out of theirs. A lot of corporations have PACs where they contribute money to politicians, and in some cases, fairly good politicians, even people like even Josh Hawley, has gotten some corporate donations from some people. And that's because there's a small segment of corporations who, may be more aligned with the Republican Party, like let's say gas and oil. But one of the issues there with the left is they're already the people who did Lincoln Project and those things. They're starting a new movement to go after any corporation who has given money to a Republican candidate that is aligned with Trump. So see, the left is on top of doing these things. We don't have a similar thing. We don't have a similar sleeping giants or Project Lincoln type thing that is doing that effectively against the left. And those are other things that we're going to have crop up and do things like that. So I'm talking to a lot of great people who are on the same page with us, who are all doing their planning to do their part here, and do segments of this. But we need to be ready to really work hard, and win this back, because we can do it. They are not firmly in control of everything that they would need to be in control of for this to just be over. And if this was over, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be wasting my time on the stream. Like, go for a walk with my wife right now. We'd have some, lunch together or something. I'd be doing something else. I'm doing this because I want all of our kids to live in a free country, and that's why my wife's doing it too. So if all hope was lost, we wouldn't be here.
Right.
So don't lose hope. There is a path forward. We can fix this. It's going to take time. It's going to take hard work. It's going to take some money. And that doesn't mean everybody has to give money, but if you can't give money, give time. You can't give time, give money. Everybody can give something to this movement in general as it builds. Okay. So I'm not going to tell everybody, put your money here, put your money there. It's not my job to tell you where to put your money. We'll say what we do, and other people can sort of take a look at it and see what they want to do. I do have to take a moment to acknowledge Carpe Dunctum.
Hey, Carpe.
Hey, Carpe. Good to see you in here.
Well, obviously, people can do whatever they want. That's what we're.
But we're going to encourage with what
that's what we champion more than anything, is individual liberty and freedom. So, but with that said, it's very important to make people aware who might not be, that we've been funding this. We've been funding our own destruction, and we're not going to sit here and cry and be victims when our house got robbed because we didn't lock the freaking door. We didn't have surveillance. We didn't have measures in place. We weren't smart enough. We have to be smarter next time, or we're going to see the same thing happen. They're going to get even more ground, covered. So this is really important to have these uncomfortable conversations. Yeah. So if you don't want this to happen again, stop funding people that do this.
I'm going to give you an example of sort of like, there's even silly ways that we contribute without realizing it. Let's say Costco. Costco's, part of sort of this COVID culture. And instead of going to Costco, and they benefit China because they do everything in bulk, and a lot of their products are produced in China. And they really hurt small businesses. And I know Costco is convenient for a lot of people who buy in bulk, and it's cheaper and all that, but that's not the best thing for our movement or for America in the long run. So we have to make some hard decisions not to go to Costco, and instead you may have to go to a few different stores to get everything you need. And but to do that, you can support those local small businesses and get to know the owners and get to know what type of people they are, and really get to choose who you support. Instead of buying honey at the store, we'll wait and we'll get honey from a local farmer. Things like that actually do make a difference.
Local farmer on meat, on produce, going to the farmer's
meat
market.
Directly. All that stuff are little ways you can sort of start to shift this. And if all of us do it, it is going to have a gigantic economic impact. And it's going to keep our communities running really well, and it's going to benefit our areas. Another thing I wanted to talk about was leaving places like California and New York. I'm being really honest when I say if you're in Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York City, if you're in places that are not represented by a Republican right now or are not competitive districts, leave. If it's already like a plus 15, plus 20 Democrat district, leave and go to a place where you can make a difference with your vote, a swing state or a red state where you're going to be around like-minded people. The time to move on from that, I can save this unsavable thing, we've got to end that. And I know there's a lot, it's difficult, it's not easy, but we did it. We left our whole life behind. We left my business, her business. We left everybody that we knew. We literally moved somewhere where we knew no one, because we fell in love with it, and we knew that the mentality was like our mentality in Tennessee.
And where we knew we could make a difference.
And where we knew we could make a difference. So you got to look at that too. If you're in a swing state, as tempting as it is to leave, please don't. Stay in your swing state, because we are going to push hard on these election reforms, and we're going to need your votes in those states in 2022 to take the House back.
Right.
And taking back that House in 2022 is so important to 2024.
Right.
Because say we take the House and Senate in 2022, we may be able to impeach Joe Biden and remove him.
Right.
Based on, we already have enough evidence with Hunter Biden to be able to do that. if we had the majorities. So it is important, it is worth our time, and it is worth our effort, because you know, what we do now will decide what our kids inherit.
Right.
They're either going to inherit something that we don't even want to imagine,
right.
where, you know, they're already talking about casting us out of society in total, doing camps and things like that. Imagine 10 years from now, if we don't stop this, where we'll be.
You know, you're going to be powerless to stop it in a city run by Democrats. They're going to run it in the ground, just like Pelosi. I mean, look at San Francisco. Look at Maxine Water. Look at their districts. You know, it tells you everything you know about what you want, what your future will look like if they're run by Democrats. So they're really, you know, it's admirable, people that want to protect their home until the bitter end. But if you're thinking long term, especially if you have children, think about the future. You know, the left, what they are doing is they're exporting their activists into red states. We've seen it here. We're seeing it done across the country, including celebrity mouthpieces for the Democrat Party, who come here, embed themselves in red areas, while at the same time evangelizing, you know, about how horrible it is. Why are they moving here? They're moving here to change the culture, to change the vote.
Yep.
And
people
so
like Reese
they're
Witherspoon.
doing it. Yes, they're doing it, but and they move here and they say how horrible, how racist people in the South are, all these negative false tropes.
And then they buy a house here.
And then they buy a house here. Now, why would they do that?
Yep.
Why are all these celebrities fleeing California? Because they know they know what they're doing. They have a plan. You know,
so we have to be just as committed to our ideology to actually change things. And the other part of this too is, you know, one thing that Trump has taught everybody about the Republican Party, that should be a lasting, monumental effect on the future of the party. As we take it over, our voting demographics are going to change a lot. Trump got more Latino support than any Republican. You know, that's something that we can grow. We can grow the Latino support, because the MAGA movement, America First movement, and having strong, firm values is in alignment with the Latino community. We can bring the Latino community over. We can bring a large part of the Black community over. We can attract young people with the right candidates, the right sort of attitude, and the right communication style. You know, when your own party is trying to stab you in the back, it's really hard to reach out to these groups sometimes. And that's what was going on a lot of times with Trump. I think it could have gone even further than it had gone with him, because so many people within the party sort of sabotaged him. But, you know, you look at 2022, that's why a you know, sort of MAGA house, if we can get those primary candidates through to the general election across America in 2022, we could literally be looking at a house that is dominated by MAGA candidates. You could have it completely controlled by them if we do this right, because the biggest energizer to turn out votes in 2022 is going to be Donald Trump. It's not going to be Joe Biden. It's not going to be Kamala. And another thing to keep in mind that we haven't even talked about on this stream is redistricting. Okay, the census happens every 10 years and we redistrict states. California is losing congressional seats, and New York's losing congressional seats. A bunch of Democrat states are losing congressional seats, and you know where they're going? We're getting new congressional seats in a bunch of red states like Florida, Texas. Okay, and those seats are going to become Republican seats. So our map in 2022 is incredibly favorable to the Republican Party. Even states that are not getting new seats get to redistrict. So you can redistrict and cut out maybe one Democrat seat from a state to better represent the will of the voters in that state. You know, so we are going to have more Republican, we're going to have the ability to take the House in 2022. The Senate side is a little more dicey. It's going to be harder fight on the Senate side. That's why I think the House is where we really have to focus in 2022, and we can really stop this terrible train that's coming down the tracks.
Absolutely, we have a lot more power than we're fully understanding at this moment, because it's you know, it's disappointing. It's disappointing because we're realizing how much of our system is corrupt, how many people have put on you know, a mask, and we've been deceived, we've been let down. But you know, it's like being in a bad relationship, you know, and then you're like, I'm never gonna love again. I'm never gonna, you know, go on a date again. You know, these are extremes that happen when we're upset.
Yeah.
It's not rational. So we have to take that time. We took that time to just be upset, be disappointed in people. It's normal. But let's not stay stuck in that. We really have to find a way to re-energize and, commit to this movement that we all have to be a part of to save our country. If we don't, there will be no America. They will have gotten so much headway by the time people realize that their apathy helped that process.
And so the other thing I want to talk about is censorship and communication before we are, we'll be done after this, but censorship and communication. So it's important for us to exchange numbers with locals who are ideologically within our same framework and to organize together, organize rallies, organize events, organize, fundraisers, organize anything you can to be together among people who are like-minded. Okay. Because good things happen when you're together with people who are like-minded within this movement. Okay. That's number one. Be ready for censorship. One of the major tools the left is going to have over the next 4 years is big tech on their side, and they are going to censor. So make sure that your platform building in places like Parler and Rumble and stuff like that. I will stay on Twitter and YouTube and Instagram and Facebook because it helps me reach other people and bring people in, new people in, as long as they don't kick me off the platforms. But when they do, then I'll be on Parler, Rumble, and those places. So make sure that you take the time to look through, hey, who's my list of 50 people who I really trust within this movement that I feel like either good content creators, good leaders, good, whatever it is, and take the time to follow them on Parler, on Rumble, and those places, because you never know when things are going to be taken over.
How do you block? You got to teach me, because I did that and it didn't work. Because somebody's being like,
I don't know how to do it. I really don't care.
Well, I know, but I want to know. This is what the left does.
I'm not sure really how
we're not going to have the focus taken off of what's important here.
Yeah, it's fine. The deal is, there's people who it's actually really funny to me. You get more offended by it than I do. When people say rude stuff to me, but what's funny to me about it.
I'm not offended. I don't want the space and attention going to these little attention seeker screamers on the left who come in and troll and offer no value.
I know.
I want to remove them from the space. My mindset on this has completely changed. I used to be like, let them say it. It shows everybody who they are. Well, we already know who they are. We already know what they're doing. I'm done with it. I'm done with it. I don't want. I'm not going to have people who don't actually have an opinion. It can be a different opinion. But if you're going to be here and say make homophobic thing,
what's funny about it is
that
people like that. We'll block them after. But what's funny is people like that, they say this stuff, and then very few of them actually will show up in person. But when they do, then they realize I'm 6'3" and I carry, and they're like, I don't feel as tough anymore. So, it's just interesting. Not one of them has ever actually acted on anything that they pretend they're super tough about. So don't pay attention to trolls. They're just, again, one of those things that are trying to take you from your focused place where you can get great work done and get things done. That's their goal, is to do that. So don't pay attention to them. We'll figure out how to block them. It looks like they removed the ability to block them from here on StreamYard. We used to be able to do it from here, but now you can only block the YouTube ones that are trolling. So, it is what it is. We'll block them after.
Absolutely. Ellen Strife, do not give your adversary a seat at your table. Absolutely. My whole philosophy has changed on this. When people cross that line where they're not even disagreeing respectfully, or they're not there in good faith for a civil conversation or disagreement, they're done. They're not welcome in my home. Like that's how it works. They can't be respectful to all of you. You guys deserve more respect than that too. You're here with your time and your energy, and we're not going to allow that. So we got to figure out how we do that.
Yeah.
Because I'm done.
100%.
I'm done with these people. People that don't respect our existence, our point of view as Americans. We are Americans too. We are not going to be erased. We're not going away. We're not going to shut up. We are not going to cower in silence or be ashamed of our viewpoints any longer. We are done.
Yep. 100%. 100%. So we got through all of our points, though. This is the rough map of what is going to get us where we need to go. So, you know, I firmly believe we are going to do it, and we're going to change things, you know. So I wanted to sort of inject that hope and let you guys know that we're with you guys. You know, we're gonna fight hard.
Right. And somebody, Ed said something, Parlor is nothing more than a top 100 influencer. You know, if there's a better one, do the better one. But this is what we're dealing with. We can either empower the leftist, you know, monopoly, or we can carve out our own systems that might not be perfect, but we can drive them with pressure to change, to add new features. But they also grow as we support them.
Yeah.
You know, I want to make
Twitter
sure.
was like that in the beginning
Absolutely.
too. Actually.
Twitter was like that too. You know, we have to you know, weigh the, you know, the beast here. You know, there's things I don't like about certain platforms that are the right is building. You know, but we have to make them better because the alternative is much worse.
Well, Parler got an investment too from I think it was the Mercers, you know, who are a Republican family. So they're going to be upgrading their platform and making it, you know, better over time. I have no doubt about that. But you know, platform building takes time, and that's the thing, is we have to do that hard part of doing things that are not you know, super easy. If you can't, you know, nothing great was easy, you know, in American history. So to do something great here, we're going to have to be willing to do things that are not easy. And, you know, I would actually argue that your real life social circle that you have is even going to be more important to you than your social media circle over the next 2 to 4 years.
This is part of this counterculture movement. I mean, this is the thing. So many people have come out of the woodworks that we've built our own ecosystems of people, of patriots. And what's so amazing is we have more connection now in the age of disconnection, in the age of COVID, than we've ever had socially, because we're having meaningful relationships, meaningful people, meaningful community coming together, and we are physically meeting. We are physically getting together. We are doing rallies. We are coming into people's homes. We are having music night and wine night and Bible studies and book clubs. We are rejecting the COVID culture, the fear culture, the whole agenda to keep us in fear and afraid of each other and not coming together, because they know when we come together that we realize how powerful we are.
100%.
So we reject all of that, and we have more connection. I just realized that, like, that we have more real connection than we've ever had.
100%.
Because even when we were surrounded by lots of people before, it wasn't meaningful.
They weren't meaningful connections.
It was not a shared value. It was not community and relationships, you know, that were equally yoked, you know, with people fighting for the same thing.
So those real world connections are going to be very important in the next 2 to 4 years. Is build that group,
people,
find out what restaurants don't hate you too locally.
Absolutely. And meet there and support them.
Meet there, support them. That's what we do. We have we do it on almost a schedule.
We literally have a social schedule
we
now.
do. And so you have to do that. And I've seen some people comment since we stopped talking about it, saying their vote doesn't matter and all that. Please, when this stream is over, start it from the beginning and watch the beginning. We address that because I understand that feeling, but it is so important to understand your vote does matter. It's going to matter. And there's a way to fix what has gone wrong in this election and in previous elections. What this election did is it exposed a problem that was magnified really by the fact that the vote by mail got larger. And so we now have the opportunity to go to our Republican controlled legislatures in every one of the swing states in question and change those election laws. Okay. We just have to do it now. Okay. We couldn't do it, you know, in December. We couldn't have the legislatures get together and do it because it was refused for a special session to be called. Okay. Which is what you need to do. Regular session just began. Okay. They just went into session in most of these states. I think there's only one left who hasn't, that starts on the 11th or something like that. And so we have to reach out to these legislatures in the swing states and get these election reforms. The one that we may not get, but that I really want, is paper ballots. But I do know, you know, I am confident we're going to roll back the vote by mail. I think that's a big one that everybody understands was a huge part of this. Okay. And then also having systems in place to audit the electronics that are used, and also take a really hard look at what electronics you're using. I'm of the opinion we should use no electronics and that we should be going to paper ballots entirely. I will push for that. I think in some places we'll get it, but in other places we won't, but we will get changes. So we are going to have holes filled that have been a problem in not just this election, but in previous ones. In this election, it just got magnified because it was just such a wide, it was so obvious, so your vote does matter. But I encourage you, if you're just tuning in now, when we're done here, you have to wait like a minute for the stream to officially end, and then it'll let you hold it down if you're on StreamYard and take it back, or if you're on YouTube, just start over and scroll back to the back. But start over, because we went through a whole sort of plan for how we can get to a really good place. Right. And I hope it answered a lot of questions people have.
Yeah, and if you believe your vote doesn't matter, that's all the more reason to champion election reform.
Because you want to overhaul
ID,
the party.
all of these things is overhaul the party, right? Overhaul the system.
The path forward is taking over the Republican Party, not walking away from it. That's the truth. Right. You want all of the uniparty stuff to continue. You want the Bushes and the Romneys of the world to prosper, sit at home and do nothing.
Right. I imagine,
because that's what we'll get. And it's what we'll deserve if you do that. If you choose to sit at home and do nothing, we will deserve what we get.
What a more perfect scenario for some big leftists in power, rubbing their hands together going, first we cheated in plain sight on video, we stole the election, and now they've lost faith in the entire system. Ooh, ha, 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 ha. They're never going to vote again. We've gotten rid of Republicans, and now they hate their own party, and they want to destroy themselves. Ooh, ha, 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 ha. It literally couldn't be any more perfect for them, the scenario.
It's exactly what they want. It's exactly what they want. So I hope that this was helpful. I hope it answered some questions. I hope it gave some hope, because there is hope. There is light at the end of the tunnel. All is not lost. And we can stop this train that's coming down the tracks as long as we do it in the next 2 years. That is a really critical part of this, because you get past that, it gets much, much harder.
Right. And you know what? I'm not going to take any advice or listen to people without faces anymore.
Yeah, that's a good rule. That's a good rule, I think, for the internet going forward. If you don't have your face on there, I don't think I'm gonna take your opinion very seriously.
Yeah.
All
right. Well, back to work for us.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye, y'all. Have a great day.